Chapter 46. Under Suspicion. Early the next morning, David came by the apartment, picked up Ari and the tape he and Yakov had made the night before, and drove him to Mossad headquarters in Tel Aviv. Wondering why it was required, Ari brought along the suitcase, with 2 weeks' change of clothing that he'd been told to pack. David looked grim but seemed unwilling or unable to explain his somber mood. "Don't say anything about being allowed to stay at your apartment last night," David said as soon as they were in the car. "Why not?" asked Ari in surprise. "It was an unauthorized favor I did for you," David responded cryptically. "If you're asked, of course you'll tell the truth. Just don't bring it up." "I don't get it." "You may not be back in that apartment for a long time. I certainly wouldn't make any wedding plans." "What is this? A new assignment already?" "I just got back. Miriam and I were going to get together tomorrow and set the date." Ari's voice trailed off in disappointment. "No, it's not a new assignment. You're going to be kept under protective custody. If you think Del Sasso or Aylor might try to come after me, well, you know the Mossad can't fight them, but Messiah Jesus can, and I'm under his protection now." "Don't mention him at headquarters," warned David. "You're in enough trouble." "Trouble? I thought I'd be a hero. I got out of there alive with information no one else knows except Del Sasso and Carla, and they're not going to tell the truth." "You think Carla's on Del Sasso's side?" "Why wouldn't she be? They work together." "You really believe that?" "Why wouldn't I? I don't know what you're getting at. She's the one who invited me. That's the problem." For the first time, Ari realized that David seemed to be regarding him with suspicion. "Look, you really have me mystified. What's going on?" "You'll find out. I've already said more than I'm supposed to." He lapsed into silence and concentrated on his driving. Ari couldn't let the subject drop on that note. "David, we've been friends for 3 years. If something's wrong, then tell me. Sure, I told you last night that I became a follower of Jesus 2 days ago. I'm convinced he's alive. But Yakov, he's a believer, and everyone seems to respect him. I don't see how my new faith could be such a problem. You know this Jesus thing doesn't go over in Israel. Yakov's a special case, a war hero. You're not." "But Jesus was a Jew," protested Ari, "born right here in Bethlehem. So why the prejudice?" "I don't think most Jewish people know what our own Hebrew prophets said about the Messiah and how Jesus fulfilled everything. You can't deny it. Have you ever—" David cut him off. "Forget the Jesus stuff. You don't need that on top of your other problems." "What problems?" "I've already said too much. I won't be in charge of your debriefing. The chief's taking over." "I don't mind that. I think he ought to hear for himself what I have to say. Israel's in great danger. It's incredible what went on at that Congress." "That's the problem, incredibility." "You're talking in riddles. David, we're friends. We trust each other." "Should I still trust you?" There was sorrow in David's voice, as though he'd been betrayed. The anguished look he gave Ari said more than words. "What do you mean by that?" "What do you think I mean by that?" "As God is my witness, David, I don't know. I risked my life for Israel. I thought that you and the chief especially would be pleased." "I just don't understand. You've got to spell it out. I've brought back the information." "They're not going to believe you," David interjected. "Come on, you're kidding me." "We have other reports. Now, I'm not saying any more." Ari was stunned. "Other data that contradicts me?" He thought about that for some time before it came to him. Del Sasso and Carla, of course. But the Mossad wouldn't believe them. "You mean information from Del Sasso and Carla?" asked Ari incredulously. "They're the only other survivors, according to the news reports. Of course, they'll say I'm lying." He paused for a moment in disbelief. "You're not suggesting that the office is going to believe them instead of me?" You're still linking Del Sasso and Carla? Asked David, giving Ari another suspicious look. Of course. They work together. You really think so? Think so? I know so. Carla never made it a secret that she was working there. You almost convince me you're sincere. David, what are you saying? Take my advice and change your story. Ari exploded indignantly. I can't just make something up. I'm giving the facts, and the chief had better pay attention. There was a long, awkward silence. As David drove, he kept glancing over at his one-time friend beside him whenever the winding road allowed, as though he were trying to analyze his expression and posture and somehow deduce whether he was really telling the truth. You don't believe me, said Ari at last with great disappointment. I don't understand why. I didn't, but now I'm not sure. I don't know what lies they're going to come up with, but even if it's 2 against 1, you ought to believe me. We've been friends. And the office, well, I'm an Israeli. You really think it's the 2 of them against you? They both survived, didn't they? I can't imagine either one of them admitting what really happened. You're either an incredible liar or you're telling the truth, said David, and lapsed into a troubled silence once more. Ari was stunned. After thinking their conversation over for several minutes, he blurted out, I can't believe this. Why have you turned against me? Look, in case you didn't know it, and no one's going to believe you didn't, Carla was a Soviet plant, a co-conspirator with Korev. That's the finding of the FBI and CIA. You were her longtime friend, and she brought you into the picture, which doesn't make it look good for you. She's no Soviet plant. I'd stake my life on that. What's she to you? Why defend her? That makes you look bad. And to make it worse, she's become a religious fanatic just like you. Claims she survived the Holocaust because Jesus rescued her. The coincidence becomes too much. She does? Exclaimed Ari in surprise. Then she would know that the 9 are demons. That changes everything. David's expression reflected a deep inner conflict. Look, if we hadn't been such close friends, I wouldn't be telling you this. I'm not supposed to. But take my advice and change your story. Right now, it agrees with hers. That's damning. Damning? Why would you believe Del Sasso when you've got 2 eyewitnesses who contradict him? David gave Ari another puzzled look and said no more. When they arrived at the Stark Gray headquarters on King Saul Boulevard, David was taken directly into the head of Mossad's large office and the door was shut. 4 other top Mossad officers were already there. Yossi Maidan, Moshe Yishai, Shimon Hofi, and Eitan Yar. David greeted them and sat down in one of 2 chairs, still empty in the semicircle facing the chief's desk. The Mossad head, who was talking when David entered, nodded in his direction and carried on. He's lying. We have a copy of the full statement Del Sasso gave to the FBI, and they're positive he's telling the truth. No question about it, added Eitan Yar. There's no way Thalberg could have been inside that auditorium at the meeting and survived, continued the chief. No way at all. That cavern he fell into is the biggest cock and bull story I ever heard, added Shimon Hofi. Did he really think we'd believe it? And his story agrees with hers, the journalist's, declared Yossi Maidan. She's the one who invited him. She was Korev's accomplice. It's airtight. We can't have him spreading his story around. And we can't have a public trial, mused the chief. He knows too much. Our whole operation over there would be in jeopardy. We've got to break him, destroy his memory. Nodding heads indicated agreement all around. Any problem with that, Kali? Asked the chief. He was your man. If that's the consensus, said David after a moment's hesitation, I'll go along with it. This whole Archon thing, entities without bodies from another dimension, is so fantastic that nobody would believe it, suggested Moshe Ishai. Of course, the CIA and FBI are officially denying that Archons ever had anything to do with the operation, or that they even exist. We have to go along with that, or it would jeopardize our operation. We can use Thalberg's insistence upon extra-dimensionals to prove he's insane. Good idea, agreed Yossi and Shimon. The others nodded. So we all agree, declared the chief, that we're going to use this approach, right? Heads nodded. Now, let's discuss the best way to go about it.